One of the best parts about any Paradox Grand strategy game is their willingness and openness to allow modding by the community. Mods in many ways are essential for the longevity of and diversity of a game's lifespan. Crusader Kings III is no different, and with the updated UI and gorgeous new map styles and mechanics, the modding community has 100% hit the ground running, designing both mods for vanilla and complete overhauls, such as Lord of the Rings, Realms, and Exile. Today, I'll dust off my mod review boots and do my best to give you a very simple and comprehensive breakdown of the Realms and Exile mod, which will hopefully be the start of a series of Crusader Kings III mod overviews, with a standard model of how I break them down. One quick clarification, most if not all of these mods are very early in their creation and a very long way to go before completion. This overview is not a review, it's giving you some basic info on gameplay features, some starting factions, and then a roadmap if there is one, along with some quick opinions on how it played for me. As with any Crusader Kings III video, if you've yet to purchase the game and you're somehow watching a mod video on it, you can buy the game off my personal game store Nexus GG, where you receive a Steam key immediately after buying it. That link is in the description of this video. Now without further ado, let's dive into Lord of the Rings Realms in Exile 1.0, The Riders of Rohan. To give you a bit of scope on this mod, Realms in Exile is a reference to the three main kingdoms of Gondor, Arnor, and Umbar that arose after the destruction of the Kingdom of Númenor. Taking place in the year 3000 of the Third Age, Realms in Exile is a crucial turning point in the history of Middle-earth, as it begins Saruman's turning to evil and is a mere 18 years before the story of the War of the Ring. Graphically, one of the most detailed and comprehensive maps of Tolkien's world in any Lord of the Rings game, there are literally thousands of provinces that will all eventually be playable, although for now, we have a relatively small chunk to play. Obviously, as development continues, more and more pieces will be added until I imagine we have the entirety of the traditional Middle-earth map to play on. The mod as a whole is indeed a work-in-progress overhaul mod, featuring lore-friendly characters, factions, religions, cultures, units, traits, and mechanics, not to mention again all on one fantastic-looking campaign map. The switch to a Lord of the Rings style font is also a very nice and subtle touch to the region labeling and adds a simple level of immersion that I obviously would enjoy. When it comes to gameplay features, the Realms in Exile team has really dug into the roots of the Lord of the Rings lore to find and adapt Crusader Kings features into the mod, and there's quite a bit of depth to all of it right from the start. Cultures are a big one, where in this first release there are a few primary cultures, the Hodorum, Dunland, and Maya, although there are a handful of subcultures within the first two. Each culture has their own special tech, primarily in unlocking special units. The Hodorum have access to the widest range of troops, from Eothid horsemen, Rohirrim men-at-arms, and even forest wardens, which are special archers. The Dunland can recruit an array of very Viking-esque warriors like the Huskarls, Longbowmen, and Axemen, while the Gaia Ishtari benefits from having most of the technology researched from every era, even ones you have not reached yet. Religions are also present in the mod, with the free peoples of Middle-earth, the people of darkness, and the forces of evil, and much like the cultures, all have their uniqueness, with religious tenets, doctrines, and even holy sites. I rather like the forces of evil, actually, where it's considered sinful to be compassionate and forgiving, and where it's virtuous to be lustful, gluttonous, wrathful, arrogant, and even vengeful. Further releases will see more religions and sub-religions added to make the nations more unique. In the Riders of Rohan, we get our first taste at one of the event mechanics that will be in the game with Saruman. I won't spoil it completely, but Saruman will receive events that will allow him to either stay on the path of the light or give in and bend the knee, as it were, to Sauron. It is possible to resist Sauron, but it will come at a hefty cost. This event chain is rather fun and a great way to bring the story and history of the lore into action in the mod. Magic has made a way into the mod through the Decisions tab, although limited to Saruman's faction currently. In these decisions, you will be able to influence other characters, prepare explosives to take on fortresses, even summon various orcs or Uruk-hai troops. Do note that, as far as I know, most of that will depend on submitting to the will of Sauron, which to me is actually a pretty great incentive to do so. Mercenaries, terrains, and traits I'll lump into one last bit for this section. You'll be able to hire mercenaries from various cultures with appropriate culture-specific names, which will indeed be filled with cultural-specific units in the next release build. New terrain types will be present in the mod, such as deep forests and undergrounds that limit supplies and development growth. The forests of Fangorn are in the mod, but currently impassable, as are the forests of Lorien. Unique traits will become an ever-evolving and including mechanic as the factions are filled out, and cavalry-focused traits already implemented for the Riders of Rohan release. Overall, some very solid features that really help lay the foundation for the game, and as mentioned, help cement the mod into the Lord of the Rings realm. At the moment, the mod is limited to the Riders of Rohan, which only has 3 preferred faction starting positions. First, we have Theoden King of the Riddermark and head of House Airlings. He starts as a ruler of the largest chunk of territory. What makes Rohan a bit different from any other Lord of the Rings game is that since it takes place 18 years before the War of the Ring, Theoden's son Theodred is still alive and obviously heir to the throne. Eomer and Eowyn are just young children, and who else but Grima to be the spy master. With Theodred the heir and vassal to the king, he is a playable character, and it would be pretty cool to play a surreal alternate history as the prince in which Grima doesn't have his way. Rohan has 2 unique locations on the map, the capital Edoras, which is a tier 11 castle, and the Edoras unique building, giving the county a growth bonus, and the holder extra prowess, piety per knight, prestige, and a knight effectiveness bonus. The other location is of course Helm's Deep, the mountainside fortress that has never fallen in a siege. Helm's Deep is a tier 20 castle with a massive garrison of over 4,000 troops. The Helm's Deep unique building gives a huge defender advantage, prowess per devotion level, prestige, and some pretty intense heavy cav bonuses, which were clearly used during that epic scene from the 2 towers. Rohan plays heavily into the cavalry idea, with 3 new traits of Horsemaster, Cavalry Leader, and Outrider Leader giving significant buffs to an array of cavalry traits, along personal attributes that favor the character. With such a focus on cav, Rohan is a pretty fun faction to play once you start getting horsemen. The next faction is Isengard, led by Saruman the White. As mentioned in the first section, this is a crucial point in Middle-earth's history, and as Saruman the White, you have lots of uniqueness to the faction. As an Ishtari, you are a wizard of Middle-earth, heckin' old and unable to marry or have children. Who needs either when you basically live forever, right? Saruman's diplomacy, intrigue, and learning skills all start at the excellent level, which makes a lot of sense, and in this specific scenario, this matters a lot as you will quickly be presented with a choice triggered by an event. It's in the year 3000 that Saruman first uses the Palantir and becomes ensnared by Sauron himself. Choose this path, and you'll be thrown into the chaos of the world where you have several options and other events that spread the evil into Middle-earth. Choose the path of good, and you'll have to pay a hefty price, but perhaps it'll be worth it and you can alter the history of Middle-earth forever. Loads of innovations are already researched, including several in future eras, so the player has a pretty massive advantage when it comes to empire management. Combined with your crazy good skills, you can use this more effectively to conquer and subdue vassals, or use it as a means to turtle up and build tall with an Isengard as an old hermit of a wizard. Regardless, the potential to influence the world around you is incredibly tempting, and you would be good at it. It's up to you whether it's for good or for evil. Saruman has the unique building, the Tower of Orthanc, which gives a sizable increase to fort level, levies, garrisons, and some discounts to mercenary hire cost, and an increase to supply duration. A quick note here for this release, Saruman is a bit unbalanced at the moment. The team isn't too sure what causes him to get so many daggum armies when he turns dag nasty evil, but having played both as Saruman and against him, it honestly makes for some fun and challenging gameplay until he just flat out overruns you. The team is working on a fix though, so that's always good news. The last faction is inspired by the RTS game Battle for Middle-earth: The Age of the Ring, and it's Wulfgar Brynjarsson of Dunland. Starting in the most northwest corner of the current map, Wulfgar is not a terribly significant person in the mod, with only his martial skill of any significance. However, he is presented with a rather significant decision. As the neutral force between Isengard and Rohan, he will have to eventually choose which side of the war to join. Does he follow his Peoples of Darkness religion and go alongside Saruman as he falls to Sauron? or will he join the Free Peoples against their struggle and use his power to hold back Isengard? Surrounded on 3 sides by currently impassable terrain, Wulfgar has an extremely secure position to conquer the other Dunland factions to his south, which could quickly turn into a profitable economy and a sizable army, which could then help you decide which side to fight on in the future. I've yet to actually play with Wulfgar, but his faction does seem like a fun one to try your skills out on, and his unique Dunland units would make for a powerful force to reckon against. This mod, as mentioned, is just beginning. The Riders of Rohan is its first release. So what does the team have planned for the future? Well, quite a lot of things in fact. Having talked to one of the developers of the mod, Realms in Exile 2.0 will feature the factions of Gondor, Mordor, and Umbar, and Realms in Exile 3.0 taking on Rovanion and Rhûn. Eventually, the team will look to add the actual story of the Fellowship of the Ring, which should be pretty expansive considering all of the characters and their various paths. That will not happen until the Shire has been added, which is not planned currently for the next few releases. The Elves and the Dwarves are 2 factions currently in the works as well, although it's unknown at what point they will be implemented. And it will be really interesting to see if they can add creator features to the characters that really define them as those races. The endgame is a full map filled with factions of all races present in Middle-earth, all with unique religions, cultures, units, and innovations. It's a very ambitious goal, but I'm optimistic about development. To very briefly give my opinion on the mod, I really enjoyed what I've played so far. The attention to detail that's already displayed in the game is fantastic. Each major faction plays differently. The mechanics of magic and the events of Saruman are a great addition to the game as a whole, and it definitely could create a much different Middle-earth playthrough in the future. What I truly enjoy are the iconic Middle-earth locations: Helm's Deep, the Tower of Orthanc, Fangorn Forest, and Lorien, even places we can't get to yet like Minas Tirith and the statues at the Gate of Argonath. They didn't have to be so detailed right off the bat, but it's just really cool to see these in the game already. It says a lot to development that they want to start small and expand instead of trying to tackle everything at once, and I highly recommend playing it. Just don't expect to have weeks-long campaigns, as it is rather short with such a small area to initially play in. That will be all for my mod overview of Realms in Exile 1.0, The Riders of Rohan. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts on the mod itself, which will have a link in the description, as well as options on the format of this video so I can tune and refine it to make these mod overviews more concise and enjoyable. If you have any other mods in Crusader Kings III you'd like to see me cover, drop them in the comment section or join my Discord where you can find the CK3 mods channel and post your link there. I'll mention Nexus GG again, where you can buy CK3 and support this channel. And as always, if you liked the video, give it the old thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel so you'll know when a video goes live. This is Havoc, and I will see you all in the next video.